Hello, everyone. Today is Tuesday, June 17th, and this is week 11, day two of Hotel and Evening Platoon. Today, we're going to cover full stack architecture, but before we do, I want to kind of backtrack to what you peeps did yesterday, and I believe you guys did SQL with Python. What's the main thing you learned from yesterday's lesson?
Think it was a communication between the containers.
Communication between containers, right? Actually, before we actually go a little bit further into the answers to this question, what is a container? In its most
Yeah,
simplest terms, like what's a container in its simplest terms when it comes to software engineering?
A container, it's basically just it's something we use to package applications and its dependencies and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like a really key word here is self-contained. That's really, really important. So one self-contained container can package an application and all of its dependencies. And you can have another container, right, on the same computer that has all its, application files and dependencies also packaged, and they act as completely different environments within the same computer. Make sense?
Yeah.
So then you can ship that container because um, it's self-sufficient, right, and independent of anything that it runs on. That's really important. Somewhere else, and they can run it, right? But since it has everything that it needs within the container, it shouldn't need anything from the underlying hardware, right? Outside of resources. Make sense? So that's really important. So yeah, you definitely learned about containers, and then you learned about communication between containers, and then you learned about how you can use Python to run SQL queries, right? And this art was a little bit of what you were asking last week. You're like, hey, are we just going to run raw SQL queries to the database? You're always like, no, eventually you'll develop a backend that ends up talking to the database. Remember that? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So today is full stack architecture. And when people claim to be a full stack engineer, I think I might have mentioned this. What's wrong with that statement a lot of the time?
What's wrong with what's the question?
When someone says, "Hi, I'm a full stack software engineer," what's typically kind of wrong with that statement? Anybody know? The term full stack software engineer is a little bit of a misnomer. Can anyone tell me why? I'm not quite sure if I mentioned it in this class before or not. Very few people in the world are actual true full stack software engineers. Can anyone tell me why?
Not everyone can know everything.
Yeah, it's too big. Anytime you see on like LinkedIn full stack software engineer, I can assure you with a 99.99999% accuracy that they are not. Why? If you were a true full stack software engineer in its truest form, you would be among the most exceptional software engineers in the world.
Hmm.
Odds of that being likely, almost zero. You're just some guy on LinkedIn with 3 years of experience. Probably not.
There's a goal to shoot for.
Uh, have you ever heard of SMART goals? A SMART goal is always attainable. So shoot for SMART goals. Okay. So it's a little bit of a misnomer. We're going to talk about it, right? But hardly anyone is a full stack engineer, right? For the simple fact that the fields are too big. Now, can you know a little bit about a lot of things? Yes. But I think I already sent the T-shaped engineer blog in the Hotel Evening and Weekend Platoon Slack channel, right? That's ultimately what you hope to be, a shallow understanding about a lot of things, right? And eventually how you get paid is you become a subject matter expert, or what they call a SME, subject matter expert acronym, right? In something, right? Is that infra? Is that Kubernetes, right? Is that firmware, right? Is that robotics? Right? What is that? Right? That's ultimately how you get paid. Right? So when people say full stack, software engineer, they mean they have a very shallow understanding of a lot of things, and they're not particularly talented at anything, which ultimately makes you a very generic software engineer that won't ultimately command top dollar. Make sense? Also, you're not self-aware enough to know that that's almost impossible. You're not any more special than anybody else, and it's probably unlikely that you can actually deliver on that promise. Make sense? When they ask me,
Yeah.
Guillermo, what do you specialize in? Cloud infra. That's the one thing that I have the most experience in. Right? Do I know a little bit about a lot of different things? Yes. Have I done some front-end work? Yes. Have I done some DevOpsy stuff? Yes. Have I done some back-end stuff? Yes. Right? But I would never claim to be a full stack software engineer, even though I went to a full stack software engineering bootcamp. Make sense? So
Yeah.
super, super important. Okay, so full stack architecture. Today we're going to develop a simple full stack app. What is a stack anyway? So this is kind of like a gross oversimplification of a full stack, but we'll just go ahead and talk about it. What's a client? It's just a what?
Server.
No. Just explain what a client is in its simplest terms. It's just your
Machine.
Web
yeah,
browser.
your machine, right? Your machine, and that your machine can mean a lot of different things, right? It can mean your iPad, it can mean your phone, it can mean your computer, it can mean what else?
Smart
Workers.
devices.
Yeah, it could be my Garmin watch. That could be a client. Why not? Right? So a client, just something that you're accessing, that you're using to access the internet, right? A web server is typically someone else's computer, right? An app server is what?
An API, application programming interface.
Yeah,
with
really good. And I didn't want to read all this, but yeah, it's the business logic, right? The request is processed and analyzed. It's the API. And then finally, the last layer is just the database. It's where the information is being held, right? Persistent information. Where is it being held? Right? In your app server layer, right? Your backend layer is what goes and grabs it. So eventually you will make a full stack application that are deployed on the web for anyone to see. But as we build up to that end goal, you're going to keep our development local. Here's a diagram of what we'll be looking at today. And this is actually a really good diagram. So web application flow. Your client will send a request to a web server. A web server will send back HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because those are the languages of the web, right? You can also send an API request that the web server will process, right? And it'll return information, right, from the database, right? And it'll package that typically in JSON, almost exclusively in JSON, send it. Your browser, which is also just just a computer program, will parse the JSON and display it onto the GUI. Make sense?
Yep.
Boom, 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 boom. All right, people getter. The example web app we'll look at today is called People Getter. From a client's perspective, all it does is either show a list of users or a single user, depending on which button is clicked. Here's a high-level architecture. Your client, the web browser, right? A web server, a live server, or a code extension. App server, Python API container is just an API, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be in container, but it can be. And then a database, it's a Postgres inside a container, but this database can be Mongo, it can be in the cloud, it can be in your closet, it can be anywhere. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now, if it's anywhere in the world, you're going to probably need an internet connection or a private connection, right? But if it's in your closet, could you just run like a little Ethernet cord to it? You could, yeah, right? That would be a local connection. The concept is the same. It just happens to be in your closet, right? But it can be in, Siberia, wherever you can find cheap land and cheap electricity, right? All right, so a client's job is basically rendering HTML. What's another job of the client, depending on what device it is? Yeah, it renders HTML, JavaScript, CSS, all that stuff. But it could just render what? Not necessarily a web page, but just what? Doesn't have to be a full-blown web space. It could just be what? My client device on my watch. I look here and I can see the weather outside. And I can see that the sun sets at 8:34 p.m. What's it rendering?
An app.
Yeah, but that's just information. I'm not trying to
Okay.
trick you, right? It can render a whole web page, or it could just render information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. When you look at your iPhone and you just look at the weather app, oh, it's 84 degrees or 54 degrees, wherever you are, right? Or
Yeah.
you can see the time in Toronto or Wuhan, China, whatever. It's just displaying information. It doesn't always have to display, full-blown web pages. That's really not something you'll have to worry about for this course. For now, we're going to let live server VS Code extension ask as our web server. That's how we just develop locally. This is a fine local development, but eventually you'll be using an Nginx container hosted on AWS. I don't want to get too much into this right now. It starts getting a little messy. But for right now, we're just going to develop locally. So you're just going to use live server. So right now, you don't have to worry about that right now. We're just going to write HTML and CSS files. So App Server API is a Flask app. Please note, you do not need to become an expert in Flask. Can anyone tell me what Flask is? No, it says it right here. That's fine. In simplest terms, what is it?
It's an HTTP framework like Django, but it's simpler.
In simpler terms, what is it?
It's just a framework.
Yeah, but
Web
what's a framework? I've
Uh,
said it in this class.
a framework is I like to use a library of
What's a library?
a
You're using
library of
synonyms.
uh, it's
Just code that someone else wrote.
code. Yeah, it's code.
Yeah,
Code that
that's
someone
it.
else wrote to do something.
That they packaged and then you can download it and use it in your program. Right?
Yeah.
Who maintains the library and the framework?
Someone else.
Yeah, that's the answer. That's the only answer, not you. And that's great. The less you have to maintain, the better. That's why people love frameworks. That's why people love libraries. You don't have to build anything from scratch and you don't have to maintain it. The only thing you have to do is manage your dependencies, right? And these are these libraries and frameworks that you use. And when something breaks, right, you can update to a newer version of it. And someone maintains those libraries and those frameworks, right? You literally just update the versions, make sure they all play nice together. You can continue using that code. Yes?
Yeah.
Cool. So something we don't ever really talk about, it's kind of a side note, is one of the drawbacks of using libraries and frameworks is sometimes they're very opinionated and you try to do something within the framework that it doesn't allow. The example that I gave, I was working on a project a while ago, it was a front-end project, and they wanted an extra column on a nav bar. And the framework would not allow it. They would only allow 4, but the Figma design had 5. Right? Something you wouldn't think was a problem. But they said, no, you have to use this internal library. Okay. All right. So the Figma design has 5 columns on this nav bar. Library limits you to 4. What do you guys want to do? What's the easiest answer? This is a real problem. What do you think happened?
Library?
Huh?
Just change the library, if possible.
You could, but then you would have to maintain it. What do you think they went with?
Go with 4 buttons.
Yeah, they changed the Figma design. Right? Now that's an oversimplified example, but that's a real problem that sometimes you'll run into. Right? I did a stupid example of columns because that's a problem that we ran into. Right? I'll give you another example. We're using a specific framework for a customer on a project that I was working on almost 2 years ago. Right? The specific framework limited the keys, the names that we use for some of our resources to 6 characters, right? So they had to change the entire naming convention of the entire application to not go over 6 characters. And we didn't realize that until we're deploying everything on AWS. People were mad. That little mistake caused a refactor of the application, caused the thing to be a month late deployment. Something stupid like no one saw it. Something very simple like that. You see how small and esoteric those problems are? LLMs are not that good to catch those yet. Humans can't even catch them. Right? All right, so good. All right, so you've already played around with a Python server. You remember this activity? Actually, I think I was the one that taught you this one, right? HTTP server, you remember this one? So you already did that. Flask is just a library that does that, but it does it with far less code. It's very easy. And sometimes people will talk about light frameworks. What they mean by light frameworks, it's very stripped down, and it's kind of like a bare bones framework. That's what Flask is. It's a lighter version of Django, both Python based. Flask is just what happens when a bunch of smart people keep having to write HTTP servers. It uses scicom2 to mediate between Python and SQL. So it writes the code that makes this connection easy. So the database is a Postgres container, of which you've seen plenty so far. It provides the data that will ultimately be rendered into an HTML. Okay, so pet startup. Group challenge, pet startup. Oh, example web people will look at today is called People Getter. All right, let's look at People Getter. All right, we're gonna walk through this together, okay? Boom. Feel free to please follow along, because then I'm gonna cut you loose on this like I typically do. We're gonna do this one individually though. We can do the group project as a group. But I'm just gonna pull this, and I'm sure it's probably not gonna work on first go, so we're just gonna work through it. All right, so I just have another folder called Tuesday. And what is going on? Let me try this again. Okay, cool. So we're gonna clone it. I'm gonna open it. And we're just gonna follow the steps together. I think it's super mega jumbo right now. Perfect. A little smaller. CD. All right, I'm in there. I'm in People Getter. Says, hey, we're gonna go through this together. That's what the thing said. That's HTTP server. Don't need that at the moment. All right, so this is People Getter. The example web app we'll look at today is called People Getter. From a client's perspective, this is the high-level architecture. Okay, so let's just follow the directions. Start all.sh. When people say bootstrap, what do they mean? Anyone?
Well, is bootstrapping, compiling everything together and then starting it up for you.
Yeah. There you go. All right, so if I run this, this should work, right? Based on the README?
Yep.
All right, let's see. And if this works, what am I going to get?
For that, it's going to start up the backend server containers.
Okay, and then I'm going to be able to see it by opening what?
Your images, it should Docker images.
Where does it say that?
Well, it doesn't, but I believe that's what's going to happen.
I'm going to start a server, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine there's some database in there, and that information is going to be shown where? It says it on line number 2 here.
Okay, yeah. So it's going to be on, it's going to open up whatever the IP address is, and it's going to be front end / index HTML. That's the path that's going to be used to get to it or see it.
Okay, so I should be able to open it with live server, right?
Right. Mhm.
All right, so I haven't even looked in here, but I'm gonna look in here and I'm gonna assume there's a front end folder. Yep, there it is. Index HTML. Okay, so if I open this with live server, go ahead and do this now. Open live server. If I say get two people and I click get everyone, what am I gonna get? If I click this get everyone button, what's going to happen?
Not gonna get anything right now
Why not?
because that only that let's see. Let me look at this here.
You're on the right
If
track,
I'm
Cisco.
not my yeah, so because you don't have the database and everything else running where
Yeah,
you get the
so
data from. So
yeah, if I just run this, I expect to get an error, right?
yeah,
So if I run this, it's just gonna break. It's not gonna do anything, right? Or it's
right,
gonna do something, it's gonna break. Because I imagine it's gonna try to run some logic and it's not gonna be able to ping the backend, right? Or the database, right?
right.
Yeah, I'm getting this error. It said, what is it?
Connection refused.
Yeah, it said connection refused. I could see in app.js line 17. Let's go in there and check what exactly is happening. Okay. App.js line 17. I expect that to be a what? It says it right there. Failed to what?
Failed to
Yeah, that's an API call. So on line 17, I expect to see that. Yeah,
okay.
failed it. All right, cool. We're gonna get back to this. Actually, that could be bigger. It's not that big serious. All right, cool. All right, so back to this. I am gonna run this, and hopefully it loads up without any problems. Unlikely, but we'll see. All right, what's my problem?
Is your Docker running in the background?
Not. All right, it's up. Rerun it, right?
Yep.
Let's see. What is my terminal saying? I got some warnings, but otherwise it's what?
It's running. But it's like it's telling you where the IP addresses is that you can access the app from.
Yeah. Yep. So let's go to people getter again. We'll hit refresh. Right? If I press 9 people, what happened?
It looks like that's the user's ID number 9, and it just pulled their information based off the ID.
Yeah. Clo. What about if I click everyone? What do you think I'm gonna get?
Everyone.
Yep. That's everyone in the database. And I just had the name, email, and then favorite animal. I'm
Mhm.
not quite sure I know what a black collared barbet is. All right. What do we see here?
Oh, those are all the header or 200 codes. It's got when it was accessed or yeah, when it was accessed, it's got the path or the data that was requested by their ID, I guess, and then the status 200 codes.
Yeah, it shows all of all the API requests, right?
Hmm.
And and this is, I'm going to refresh this. When I get everyone, that's an API call, right? From my backend, right,
Right.
to my app server, right? That's grabbing it from the database, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the get everyone is that sequence of events. But also when I get someone, right, and I click on a number, that's also an API call.
Right.
That's actually bad UI, but we'll allow it. Typically, I should press 6 and then I should have some kind of enter button, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this, I go 12, that's automatic fetch, right? That's
Right.
what's happening here. And via ID number, right? But I could easily just do a search bar here, right? It could be
Mm-hmm.
anything. That's just the way that this is just an example. And you can see all the API calls that I'm making, right? And you can see the
Right.
status 200s,
Yeah.
right? So good stuff. I could actually even cross-check this. Sadie is 33, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would I go to look if Sadie has an ID of 33? Or something at 33 because 33 is linked to Sadie somehow.
You
Or
can.
28 to Meg. Let's go find Meg at 28. Or what does this
Mhm.
28 mean? Where do I go?
In the
So-
database.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go in the database. And then
Yeah.
I go in here. I do a search by who was I in Meg?
Yeah, there it is. Wild turkey.
That's a good favorite animal.
Yeah, it is.
It's a whiskey too.
Well, that's the first
That's
thing
what I
came
was
to my
referring
mind.
to.
Yeah, I
same
know,
here.
huh?
Meg's a
Wild
party
turkey.
girl.
That's some good stuff, man.
All right, guys, settle down. All right. So this is you can tell that 28 here is a what?
An ID.
It's a primary key, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just searched by it. That's all they did. Right. So they inserted all of this, right? And the table, notice the table. It's literally, I mean, notice the database is on one table. It's a database of people. You're connected to it, and it has a primary key, right? It's serial, which means it'll be unique, right? Name of varchar, email, favorite animal, 150 characters. Straightforward. If we look at the Docker file, right? Pretty straightforward. The setup says, hey, build people DB, DB run as PGDB. I don't know. I don't know why they called it PGDB, but it doesn't matter, right? Password, and then run people DB image in the Docker container, right? Cool, cool, cool. All right. So from the very beginning, right? It's building this image. It's using this image to build a container with this specific database that only has one table and this data inserted, right? Then I'm using this front end. Let's look at the app.js, right? Let's look at the app.js. I open it with live server, right? And these are just query selectors grabbing all the buttons, right? And what is this right here?
That's creating the an option element, HTML element, and inserting the values, the text, and appending it to the select option.
Yeah. So what is interesting about this code right here, all the way from line 1 kind of gives it to you. What's happening on window on load?
It's automatically creating those elements for you.
Yeah. So on window on load, it's dynamically creating the elements, right? And it's creating the drop down dynamically too, and creating these functions that are going to fetch the data, right?
Mhm.
It also has a remove users, right? It's creating these paragraphs and H3s and divs dynamically, right? And it's inserting them dynamically too, right? Inner text, person 1, person 2, favorite. I mean, yeah, It's just grabbing, it looks like an array of person, right?
Mm.
And it's just grabbing every element in sequential order, right? And then appending it. And this is on change, right? This is a dropdown. It's adding event listeners to all the drop-down numbers. And when you pick, it means that has changed. Run the API call for that specific ID. And then list by event listener on click. You want to remove users and get people. And to remove users and get people are just functions, right?
Mm.
Get people is here. And then remove users should be, where's remove user? Ah, here we go. Right. What do you think of this design?
Seems like a lot for a simple web page.
Seems like a lot for a simple web page. Yeah. What do you think of this window on load? What do you think of that architecture design?
Maybe is it too much to be loading right away?
Probably. Probably. You need to be a little bit more selective on what loads. Why would you lean to try to load less initially?
So they're not waiting 10 minutes to see the web page?
Yeah. So right now these are very few elements, but overall that would be the key, right? Load what's immediately necessary, right? And then you can lazy load the rest or however your application does it, right? Only what's absolutely needed initially, so it loads quickly. But yeah, you wouldn't necessarily need to load all of this on window upload. But they decided to do it just because it's a very simple web page and it's just a demonstration really to teach you full stack architecture. Any questions about this or what this application looks like? You can use this as a little template for the next one. Let's look at the next. Wait, any questions here before we move on to the next one? Because I got a feeling the next one's going to be pretty similar.
Nope.
Alrighty. I'm going to close this. I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to pull up. I'm not going to get into a lot of this. You can read it if you want, but we pretty much just went over it. But if you want more detailed analysis on exactly what we went over, you can go ahead and read this on PeopleGetter. It's just talking about how that database is configured, the API, the fact that you can change the ports, what SiteComp2 is doing. Remember, SiteComp2 is what? It's just a what?
Library.
Yeah, that helps you do what?
Run SQL in Python.
Yeah, just connect to your Postgres database using Python. Guess what? Do you think that JavaScript has a library to connect to Postgres?
Yes.
Yeah, this just happens to be the Python, right? But do you think Java has one?
Yes.
It's not called the same thing, but they have
Yeah.
it. The
Mhm.
same so the concept here is really, really important. There's a library that they're using to connect, right? Which makes your job as a developer much, much easier, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So that's PeopleGetter. It's in there if you want to take another look at it, and feel free to borrow code from it as you need it. So that's PeopleGetter. This is going to be a group challenge, but honestly, I kind of want you. I want you to start individually, but we'll start together. Like Matt, Gonna leave you high and dry here. All right, so this is pet startup group challenge. Pet startup, let's look at it. Pets and owners. You've recently been hired by the world's worst pet related startup. They have an API layer developed, but you, for some reason, are missing a database and a front end. Your job is requirements, create and populate a database tables that will fulfill the API requirements. Requirement number 2, write some kind of front end that will consume and display the JSON returned by the API. If you need to change the API code to return something having a cleaner structure, feel free. This is actually a great challenge. General, before you start writing code, you should create a virtual environment and install the dependencies listed in requirements.txt. You can do this by running pip install r requirements.txt in your activated virtual environment. Ooh, this is a little bit of the Wild West here. We're going to start together. So please follow along because you're going to do this individually at first. Yes?
Yeah.
All right. Please follow along. Boom, 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 boom. I have people getter here, but I'm just going to back out one. I'm still in my folder Tuesday. I'm going to go ahead and just clone this project here. So I'm going to give pet startup here. Okay, let's look at it, see what we get. So I have an API. So in that folder, there has to be an API. So I only need a front end and then the database created and the schema for that fulfills the API requirements. Those are my requirements. Okay, cool. I'm going to go into pet startup. I'm in pet startup. Let me look through it. All right. This is my cache and my virtual environments are going to be ignored. This is API server. Let's look at it. It's importing JSON, Flask, cores. It's creating an app. This looks like an API. We have a route. We have a home route. We have an owner's route. We have an owner's ID route. We have an app route. And we have an owner's ID pets route. What is this going to have? It's going to give me the owner's ID and what? In simplest terms, what is this going to return?
It's going to return the pet that belongs to the owners.
That's it. Good. An app run. Okay, cool. The README says exactly what we just discussed. Requirements. Awesome. Where do you start here?
The virtual environment.
Let's do it. And that's a simple, I'm inside pet startup, right? Python, what is it? There we go, this. Pets virtual environment. Yes?
Yeah.
I hit enter, notice it's gonna happen in my terminal. Nothing happened in my terminal because I still am missing what? I did create this pets E&W virtual environment though. And here, in order to activate, I need to go what?
That right there.
This right here. Is this going to do it? It failed. Why?
Because you need to use the pets dash VN in place of VN.
Because that's the name of my virtual environment. I can name it whatever I want. And I just didn't do the default DENV, which stands for virtual environment. I did pets virtual. Hey, grab pets virtual environment and start it for me. Cool. Notice right-hand side of my terminal. Look at this little blue thing. Tells me I'm in it now. Right? Cool. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a pip install requirements.txt, and this is going to do what?
I'm going to install all those packages.
All these packages and dependencies, and all of this is what in layman's terms?
Code that other people built.
Yeah, code that other people built that I can use, import into my application that I can use is gonna make my job easier as a developer. Right? So I'm gonna now install a bunch of code that I'm gonna be able to use. What do the equal signs mean? It just means, hey, install this specific major and minor version. So this specific version of the package, that's what I need for my application to run. There's a bunch of like different symbols that you can use there that says up to this version, greater than this version, less than this version, between these two versions. You'll figure that later. But for right now, the double equals means install this version and this version only. So I'm going to pip install. Did this work? There we go. Gonna do a bunch of downloading. What happened here?
Oh, oh no, it's there. It said PG config is required to build Psycog from source.
Could not find version of satisfies requirement psychop 2.95. Let me see. Why is that? You're using pip version, however, version is available. Usually because they're upgrading. Well, let me try that. I'm going to do upgrade my pip. Maybe that's the issue. Install. And I'm literally just following that command right there. Upgrade pip. Not sure if that's the problem, but we're going to try it. There we go. Let me try that again. Requirements txt. Ooh, that was a little bit better, but I'm still getting a
So process exited with license classifier. Please consider removing the following classifiers in favor of.
guys. Are you guys getting this error as well?
I'm actually getting a different one. I'm getting a failure to build Psycho PG2. So it's able to build one of them, the markup one, I think it's called. But the other one's failing, but I'm not getting the same error as you.
Okay. Everyone else run it, please, because we need to get past this. Make sure that either you're getting my error or Joe's error.
You mind saying failed to build installable wheels for some of Pyro project.
All right. Let me try this command. This is what I found online. I'm going to pip install this specific binary, and maybe that fixes the problem. I prefer building Saga 2 from source. Please install. That's what I did.
So what I did was I actually just created the Docker file. I think it has to do with the Python version that we're trying to use. Because I created a Docker file and I'm using Python 3.1 dash Buster, and so it's basically the Docker file, and it's copying the requirements text, and then it's doing the pip install command that you have and doing everything else, and it loaded everything correctly.
I don't know what you're
just...
saying, Cisco. Walk me through the fix, buddy.
Okay, so create a Docker file.
Excellent. Let's do that. Inside pets, right?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Docker file. All right. What do you got?
From Python.
Just Slack me the
Oh,
command.
okay. Okay. I'll Slack you everything.
So we're just gonna build the Docker file. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Where are you here? There you go. Okay. There you go.
Do 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 do. This right here?
Yeah. That's it.
All right, explain to me why this fixes it.
Well, so basically it's really, I believe it's really from that top line right there, the version of Python that we're using. Tiffany spoke of Buster having a certain feature set that some of the other Pythons don't have when we're trying to um, work with certain packages. And so I believe Buster is it's giving you, it's fixing all those errors that we're trying to do manually there for you. And it's
Gotcha.
able to, it's able to install everything correctly.
Okay, so what you're saying is, how do I run this to make sure that I know it's fixed?
So, well, you can do the Docker run, I believe. Yeah, Docker, well, you got to do Docker build first, right?
What am I building?
Build T, you can call it pets underscore API. And then yeah, and then dot. And then you can hit enter for that.
And this is going to do what exactly?
That's going to build the that's going to build the image if I'm not mistaken.
It's going to build the image of the API inside the Docker containers, what you're saying.
Right, right.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, let's see. Server dot, oh yeah, we need the rest of the contents there. So I have a server.py as well in there. You might be able to just comment that out right now. I don't know.
What is this saying?
So you're copying server.py into the DB IP address.
Okay, but I don't have server API. I have
I'm
API
sorry.
server.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I have
So yeah,
API server, right?
Okay. And then you're going to also need that DP the underscore IP underscore address file as well. But you might be able to take that out as well.
Okay,
Right
I'm going to
now.
copy those two files, right?
Mm-hmm.
And DB IP address, right? What do we have for that?
That's just the IP address. You can probably just put the IP address in there in place of that. So that's 172.17.0.3.
Let's try to run it this one. You shouldn't need it.
Okay.
All right, pets API.
Yeah.
Let's try.
Yeah, it's complaining about that DP.
All right, what if I was to remove it?
Yeah, that should work.
All right. I'm gonna build it, build it. Looks like it worked.
Yeah.
How do I check it worked?
Docker images
Docker images,
or Docker PS. One of the two.
Docker PS.
There
Cool.
you go.
This is people DB. This is not API server.
That's weird. Okay. Let's see. That's because people API, people DB. Go to your go go to the API server. Is it
API server, what do you mean?
yeah, your p.py.
Right here?
Yeah. And scroll up. Oh no, okay. Pets. All right, so it didn't run it.
What do you mean it didn't run it? What does that mean?
Hold on one second. Okay. So that people DB is what that's from the That's from the people getter that you ran earlier. That's
Correct.
what's showing up right there. So
Correct.
yeah. So try Docker images for me. Let me see something real fast.
Docker images.
Yeah. There it
That's
is.
it's right there.
Yeah. Okay. So you pet safe. That's what all I got so far. So I got
Okay.
the image to run.
Is it this?
Ah, yeah. It's
Is that what
probably
it
yeah.
is?
Yeah, it's probably what
Should we
it
try it
is.
again? Let's try it again. All right, I'm going to build Pets API again. And ideally, what do I want to see here?
You want to see Pets DB or Pets API.
Yeah, I need that Docker container, right?
Right.
Now I can do Docker PS.
Still showing DB. And
Nope.
let's
So how would you debug this? Someone else besides Cisco? I could check Docker images. I'm building the image, right? Guys, I'm building the image, but I need to run the container, right? Should we look at something? Should we look at the people? Pet startup? No. People getter. Let's look at it. If we look at this and we look at the API, we just compare, right? I look at their Docker file. What am I missing? I mean, I can add this back, right? If I needed to. I had it before.
yeah.
Okay. And then I'm missing, okay, so this API server, that's Python. Fine, that looks right. But what I'm missing is this. But this is just an IP address. I could just copy that. Okay, cool. And what do they call it? Yeah, DB IP header. DB IP header. That's what they had. That's it. This.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay. Let's debug this. The API should work here. Okay. So I have my Docker file. It literally looks exactly like theirs, doesn't it? Source, requirements, txt, pip install, requirements, server. I have mine as API server. That's totally fine. DB address, Python server, .py. Mine is API server. That's perfect. I have this. This is the same. Requirements shouldn't matter. They're the same. Server. We have our server. Let's look at our server. Should we add a debug in port 3000? Why not? Boom. That should be identical. Okay. Look at those commands. Let's go to our Docker file. Clear. All right, I'm inside pet startup, right? But I don't go inside of any folder, right? I can just try to build the image again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's try that. I'm going to build the image again. Build pets API. Let's call it, that's fine. Pets API is fine. New pets. I'm going to change the name. New pets API. New pets API. All right, that looks like it built. Now I'm going to run. What am I going to run? Give it port 8000 because that's what I had.
Yeah, 8,000 pets.
New pets
New
API,
pets
right?
API. Yeah.
This should start my Docker container with my API in it. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Did it
There it
work?
goes.
Did it
Yeah, it
work?
worked. It worked.
Okay. How can I ping it? Let me look at my API. This is a route.
Mm-hmm.
Let me make this a little smaller. I want to ping this route. How do I test it?
Just go to your local host and then put these slash owners at the end of it.
Walk me through this. What do you mean
All
go
right.
to your local
All
host? I
right.
don't know what that means.
You can press command and hover over that running on HTTP 127.0.0.1:8000.
Copy this?
No, you can just yeah. If are you on the Windows or Mac?
When Mac.
There you go. Command click. There you go.
You want me to command click this right here?
Yep.
Okay.
And just put the / owners at the end of it. So yeah, you pinged it. But
Is
you
it
didn't have
working?
it's working, but it's not getting any data
Why not?
because you haven't started the database yet or don't have a database at all.
Yeah. But I can ping it with just 8000, right? And that's going to give me a message success. I could have done that. Or
Mhm.
give me two more ways to do it. I want to ping that locally. Give me another way. Use a browser, but what else can you use?
Oh, you can just use your terminal. You can use curl or you can also use Postman if you wanted to.
I could curl it.
Yeah.
Good Postman it. Right? Any of those things would have worked. Okay, no, now I know it's working. There's also more ways to do it, but these three will be enough for now. Okay, cool. My API works, my database doesn't work. That's a start. What's the next thing you would want to work on? There's no right way to do it. Remember, you start with the part that you know, right? But if this was us, right? Right now, I'm about to cut you on, sorry, right now we're about to go on break. I was gonna say I'm about to cut you loose on break. That sounded weird. Anyway, we're gonna go on break and you're gonna come back individually and try to work through at least half of this before you jump into groups. But after break, what are you going to proceed to do? Let's get at least two ways to continue here.
Uh, a database would be one. Starting to work on the database.
So how would you start doing that?
Uh, with doing an init SQL file, making another Docker file, and basically pretty much what we've been doing with SQL databases with Docker. Pretty much the exact same thing with the setup.sh or setup.sh yeah, setup.sh, and the init SQL file and the Docker file.
Yes.
And I would
So,
create it in a separate folder.
okay. So you could create an init. And what was the other file you wanted?
The setup.sh, another
There you go.
setup.sh.
Setup.sh. And you can move these into folders, right? I'm just trying to give you
Mhm.
kind of like I just want to give you options on where you could go next. You could start with the schema. You could start with init with just one table, inserting one item, right? You
Yep.
could go that route. What's a different route you could go? That's not the only route you could go. What else could you go?
I'm not gonna say anything.
Don't say anything. Oh, I forgot to mention this earlier, but Python 11 Buster is just a version of Python 11, 3.11, right?
Hmm.
Buster is just nomenclature, right? So it's had this specific version. Give me 1 second, guys. What's the second route? Cisco already gave us one. We can start with the SQL, but that's not the only way you can start, right? Well, it's only 3 pieces, guys, right? They gave you the API. Cisco just talked about starting with the database. And I'm asking for one more way to start. There's only 3. We've talked about 2. What's the only other one left? There's only 3 pieces to this. The database, the API, and the front end. We talked about the database and the API. What's the only piece left?
Front end.
About
All right,
HTML.
front end. There you go. Cool. Awesome. You could easily start with an index.html. Sweet. I'm going to do exclamation mark tab. Why is this not working? What's my shortcut, guys? Sorry, I forgot. That should work. Why is that not working? There you go. Oh, it took like forever to work. Okay, so we're about to go on break. I know you guys are eager for dinner. We're gonna go on break in a little bit. But all right, so I created an index.html. What do I want to show here? I can go ahead and open live server, right? It's showing nothing. What would be dope? Be dope
Any
if I could, huh? What's up?
anything on that page?
What do you mean?
Putting something on the page?
Like what would be super dope? Something that would maybe on click hit the API, right? How about a button? There you go. Got a fetch stuff button, right? And on this fetch stuff button, I could easily just, even if I didn't want to, eventually, and you need to show it on the DOM, right? But initially, you could just what? You could just console log it or something, right? Yes. On this button click, instead of me using curl, fetch that information, right? And look at the criteria for the API and create those buttons. But initially, just a simple, if I look at my API, why don't you just build this route? On button click, hit the home route. Right? And eventually, these are just different routes, right? Yes?
Yep.
Take one way to go and go that route after break. Take a 17-minute break, come back at 7. I'll open the breakout rooms. Start individually first, and then I'll give you about 30, 40 minutes. We'll come back together, discuss where you're at, and then we'll break you up into 2 groups. That work?
Yep.
All righty. Use all available resources, ideally just the curriculum that we have. If you need to go outside and search Google or ChatGPT, feel free to do so. But we've given you all the tools that you need just on old lessons. So you should be able to find them. Yes?
Okay. Yep.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
here. All right, how do we do? Where are we?
So far, so good.
How far you gotten, Cisco?
Well, I got as far as getting a client going, I got the client going. I got all of the different layers, the API layer, the database layer, and the front end layer going. Only thing is connecting the database. I'm getting the error saying that my database don't exist when I try to run the back end API. So yeah, so my API is still returning errors as far as
It's
pulling
so
the data.
embarrassing, Cisco, that your database doesn't exist.
So that's where I'm kind of at. I'm trying to figure out I know it's probably just the name that I'm using for the database. That's basically what the problem is. So I'm switching in the server.py file where it actually creating the routes and stuff, and it's trying to connect to that DB name part. That's what I'm trying to debug right now. But my on the Docker, my database is called pets DB. So yeah.
But you don't know. That's what it sounds like.
Right.
Okay, so how would we, this is actually a pretty common problem. So what are the steps that Cisco would take in debugging this? What's the first thing you want to check? So just so we're clear, his problem is his API is saying that his database doesn't exist, right? That's the problem? Okay,
Yeah.
so think about that problem. His API, when he pings it, says, hey, your database doesn't exist. Okay, what's the first thing we check in this problem?
I guess probably the name which you were doing, but then also maybe the path. Okay, just kidding.
That's okay. Check the database, go into the database, make sure you can query stuff, make sure it's there and it works.
Got you.
First step, right?
Right.
The next thing is what Joe said. Right now that we know that the database exists and I can query it, right? You can go into PSQL shell, and you can query it manually. You can be like, no, Adam is there with his Great Dane, right? Okay, cool. The next thing you need to check is, hey, my path is probably wrong, or it's not making the connection properly to the database. So it's saying it doesn't exist. That doesn't exist seems like a connection problem, right? Because you looked at it, you queried it, you were just there, you know it exists.
Right.
So now it's a path problem, probably, or a connection problem, or both.
Okay.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Cisco committed a very classic Cisco mistake. He built everything out only to realize that one simple route doesn't work. Very, very common problem, right? Did you build that R table, Cisco?
Yes.
Did you add a bunch of data?
Not a bunch.
And no, it doesn't work.
I said not a bunch. It
Add
was just
one item.
right.
Okay. So again, break this problem down. Through the API, you could have just queried one item in the database. The simple home, right? Hey, return this one person that has a dog. Two properties, right? Something, right?
Yeah.
That's it. If that works, right, we can figure out all the data later, right? And the schema stuff. But we know that all our routes work, right? Then after I did that, I could have added a front end button to ping the API to query the database. Okay, that works. Now we can build complexity into our application, right?
Gotcha.
It's really hard to do. We all kind of always bite off more than we can just do. Super common problem, but you need to really, really practice that because eventually you'll tackle really intractable problems. So you really just need to sit there. Kind of an underrated thing of being a software engineer is just you just kind of sit there and think a lot of the time, believe it or not. Like after this, I was just sitting for probably about two hours because a programmer's first instinct is always just to code and to try to fix it. And sometimes you just got to sit there and be like, wait, no, I've already tried to do that. That didn't work. I need to really think about what I'm trying to do here. And you just sit with the problem, right? And figure out, okay, let me just not rush into coding. Let me really think this out. What's going to make more sense here? Because I've already tried the rush to coding part. It didn't go too well, right? So let me just try to think this out. Okay. So super, super important, guys. You're kind of almost fighting against what your natural instinct would be. Like, oh no, I can fix it. And sometimes you just can't, you know. Okay. So you were stuck there. Anyone else? Where are we? Where are we, guys? You can just tell me where you are. It's okay. I don't grade your assignments or anything.
I'm probably in the same boat where I did too much before checking it.
Okay.
I was just
Super.
the files, and I was able to get my API and database containers running, but yeah, I have to figure. I'm right now trying to figure out how to check them and
Okay.
sure that it's actually hitting it before I try to do the front end part because I started doing that and then realized nothing on there is going to work
Yep.
because I haven't checked that yet. So I went backwards.
Yeah. So simple thing with that one item in the database, you could have ran the home route, right? You could have ran the owner ID route. You could have ran all the API routes because you know them to the one item in the database or the two items in the database. Okay, all my routes work, then add the front end. That would have been a good way to tackle it. You know that they're all communicating. Okay, super commonplace to get stuck. And I say this, it's really important because you'll be at work and then you'll make a bunch of changes, right? And then you'll realize that half the changes are good and half the changes are bad, but you'll make one commit and then you'll push it. And you're like, oh crap. And then you're going in there, copying, pasting your code and trying to undo half your commit. But sometimes you touched 50 files or 20 files, and that's a pain in the ass.
Mhm.
Right. So you're going to run into this problem at work all the time too. So it's just better to try to get good at it right now. Right. And I tell you from personal experience, I still sometimes do make that mistake. Right. Make sure you're checking periodically, make sure it's working. Okay, good. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go over this, and we already did the first part once, but I deleted everything. So we're going to do a speed run here and get you to where all your routes work. At least that's what I'm hoping for. All right, so here we go. Notice, look at my screen. I broke this down into what?
Subdirect.
Subdirectories, yeah.
Yeah, my three components, my front end, my database, and my API. Okay, my API is exactly like it was before, except I deleted all the Docker containers. So I want to run that up and ping that API. So what do I want to do in my terminal right here? The API is done. I just got to rebuild it and run it. So give me my commands. What am I going to do here from my terminal?
Docker dash T.
Not yet. I need to go where?
Into API directory.
I need to go into API. All right, I'm in API. Now, I need to build it, right?
Yeah, you need to build
I am going to
it.
build Pets API
Mhm.
from dot, which is root directory. And then I'm going to check images. Builds it, Docker images. I can't spell. Cool. Pets API was there. Okay, that's at an hour ago. Okay, you know what? Let me call it something else so it doesn't confuse. Let's do Pets API 2. Pets API 2. Let me build it. So there's nothing weird going on. Docker images. Right, there I have Pets API 2. Why does
Mhm.
it say it created an hour ago? That's not true. I literally just created it now. Whatever, we're gonna ignore it. Fine. So now I created the image. Now I just got to do what?
Docker run dash rm. Yep. There you go.
Yeah. Pets API 2. I'm gonna run that container, right? And we did this
Mhm.
earlier, so this should work. Okay, now
Right.
I'm running. Cool. I'm gonna command. Yeah, sure, dude. Open. Let's see how we're doing here. This shouldn't take this long. I don't know why it is. Oh, there you go. It's this one. All right, message success. All
Mhm.
right, so we have our API container running. Awesome. Now what do we want to do? Let's go database here
Yeah.
because this is a mistake a lot of you made here.
So you can do go to the database. You want to do Docker build
Where?
in the well, you got to go inside the database folder.
Okay. So remember I told you guys that this terminal is the same as another one, and I think a lot of
Mhm.
people like use, at least I personally like using the terminal outside because I can move it. Here, I really could use this real estate, but for whatever, we're going to try to make it work here so you could just see it. Okay, I have
Okay.
another terminal here. I am an
Mhm.
API, don't care about API anymore. I care
Right.
about database.
Right.
I called it database, I believe. Yep, database. Okay, so I am inside my database folder.
Yeah.
I'm going to
And
go
you
inside database. I'll go to my Docker file. I literally just stole this from people getter. So that's
Mhm.
right. Init, what did I do?
You created a table.
Created a single table. It's got a primary key, it's got a name and an email. That's it. And I
Mhm.
put this person in there.
Mhm.
That's it. That works, right? One person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I have my setup file, right? I have petsdb image, and I'm going to create a Docker container off of it.
Okay.
And I create a DB called a container called petsdb. That work?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so now here, what am I going to do?
You got to do Docker build dash T. Oh, well, you already did it. I mean, well, yeah, Docker. Oh, you can just do dot slash forward slash setup sh.
What is this going to do?
Run the setup file.
Why is it marking red? Shouldn't this be green?
Uh, oh, because you're in the wrong. No, you're in the right thing. I don't know why it's marked
Do you
red.
not have privileges yet for that?
No, I actually have no idea why it says that.
It's
Well,
there.
we're gonna run it. Okay, this is setup.sh, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's there. Why is it marked in red? Doesn't matter. All right, so I'm gonna execute this, and this is gonna do what? Build the image
Yeah, build the image
and
and
run
run.
my container, right?
Mhm.
All right, let's see. Permission denied. Good job, Joe. What's the command? Do you remember?
C mod plus X. There it is.
Yeah.
And it's now called
The
boost
same thing happened to me, so that's why what the issue
yeah.
was.
Setup.sh. Cool. And in Linux, notice it switches, right? So no output is good in Linux. No news is good news. So now I'm going to run this, right? It should build my image and run my container. Now I'm going to have how many containers running locally? Two.
Two.
Let's see if it works. All right, that didn't quite work. It says Linux unable to prepare context path DB. What is that saying?
Oh, uh, yeah. So you got to change the build. You got to change that sh to database instead of DB.
Change this to database.
Yeah,
Why?
because that's your path name. That's your folder name for
Correct.
that. Yeah.
All right, setup.sh. Okay, this is right. My folder's not called DB, it's called database. I'm gonna run this, this should work. Nope, it says database not found. Unable to find image, petsdb image latest locally, Docker.
You saved it, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know, it's funny. I had the same issue when I was running mine, and I fixed it, but I don't remember what the hell I did.
Okay. Well, go to do Docker PS. Do you have another? PS API too. Do Docker images.
Would you have to remove the database part because you're already in that directory? Is it looking for database within database?
Is that what it's doing?
Because the dot means in the current directory you're in and you're already in.
Correct.
You're right.
Correct.
Yeah.
What were you looking for though, Cisco?
Um, Nothing, never mind. I was basically making, because sometimes I've seen that when I have another container instance running or something like that, and it's just clashing with it.
Okay, let's run it.
There you go.
All right, so that looks like it built it
Hmm.
and it ran it.
Yeah.
Did it? Is that right?
Hmm.
It's been running since you in your other terminal there.
What are we getting confused here?
Well, that's an image. That's not a container. That's an image, right? You're in the contain. You're looking at containers.
I'm looking at containers, yeah. But I am in database and I should be running one other what?
You want me to put this up?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
What's the issue here?
That should be running. That should be running a. Well, you got the back end. You got the server going, right? You got a server going,
I had a server for the API going,
all right?
right? Now what?
You actually need. Huh, I don't know.
Let me see. All right, so here, if I run the setup, it gives us internal library Postgres 15. Something's not right, right?
Hmm.
How do we debug this?
You do Docker logs.
Docker logs here?
Yeah, Docker logs and pets DB, pets underscore DB.
Docker logs pets
Mm-hmm.
underscore DB.
Yeah. No such container.
No such container.
Wait, you label it pets underscore DB underscore image now.
Uh, this is the name of the
That's
container. You
that's
can
the
name it
name of
whatever
the
you
container,
want,
yeah.
My bad.
right? Right. It's using this image. It doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says dog logs pet, no such container pets DB. And if I go Docker PS, right, there is no container named so that is not working,
You hot.
right? So how do I fix this?
Your skin is a little clammy. You hot? Yeah, I know. Okay. All right. Well,
Do
sleep
you need a
tight.
rebuild?
Love you.
You want to rebuild? All right, give me the command.
Docker build -t pets underscore DB underscore image? Or is it
I'm gonna-
also a stat?
Pets underscore. But I don't have to build it. The command's right there, right? That's what my setup.sh file does, right? It does it for me.
So dot slash setup dot sh.
Yeah, but I already did that. It looks like it's failing where? When I go petsdb, says error response from daemon, no such container called petsdb.
Right.
You want to run it one by one? Docker build pets db image. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If I run this and it's successful, I should see two images, right? Is that correct? All right, let's see. Okay, I did that. How would I check if I have two images?
Docker.
Image.
All right, we're getting somewhere. I have pets DB image. Boom, right there. Now what do I do? Docker run. What do I want to run?
You want to run the, let's see. You want to run the pets API 2.
No, I don't want to run API 2. I already have API 2 running. I want to run
Oh,
what?
okay. Okay. Well, you want to run the DB image then.
Run pets DB image,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Let me run it on, I think this one's running on 8,000. Can I run this on 5,000? Can't share a port. So can I run this on 5,000? Is this going to work?
It may.
Maybe. Let's
May.
see. Ports are not available.
Already in use.
All righty. Can I run it in port 2000?
I don't think
Without,
2000. I don't think 2000 will work either, but you can try it.
let's see. Says database is uninitialized and super user password is not specified, right?
Yay.
It's this right here. All right. So would this work individually? What happened there?
It's an untrusted host that you were trying to use, doing it with port 2000.
Yeah. I mean, that was an issue, but ultimately I ran the .sh file and it didn't work. And then I ran the commands individually and they did work, right? Because this shows that there is a container with that ID,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if
Mm-hmm.
I do Docker PS, how many containers am I going to see?
3. None. Oh, just one.
There's only one container. Docker images. I have a petsdb image
Mm-hmm.
and it's not working, right? So what, and my .sh file wasn't working properly either, right?
Right.
So that leads me to believe that what is broken?
When I've had this issue before, it's usually something in my like SQL setup.
Yeah.
Here,
Oh, I see what's broken already. Yeah, it's that
what is
extra
it?
that extra that comment at the end of email.
Here,
Yeah,
this
that
is
should
right.
fi- yeah, that should fix it.
Alrighty. Let me delete the image. How do you delete the image?
You do you can copy the image ID and do Docker.
RMI. I think it's RMI, right? Followed by the image ID. I might be wrong.
Docker RMI,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Force. Yeah. There you go.
okay, so Docker images. Okay, I don't have that image anymore. So now I am going to, I'm going to do what? Build the
Yeah.
image again. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Well, try running the script again. I'm just curious if it'll just work off of that.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's try that. This should give me that build. This looks right.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know I did it right?
Check your images.
Not the images. I can check the
Yeah.
images though. And there you go, DB right there,
Yeah.
12 seconds
Right.
ago. Right? But how do I know my container's there?
Docker PS.
What's happening still?
It's not building the container out.
It's not building my container at all. So Docker images, get the ID, copy it. Docker, what is it? RMI. And
Mm-hmm.
then you give it the ID. I'm going to remove it again. And we know that our init and our setup file are wrong. So we need to figure out what is wrong with our file. Can we check something that we know?
Oh, ha! I see another thing I didn't see.
What
The
is it?
person, you got person instead of owner for your insert into statement.
On your setup dat sh, can you remove the tac rm from the second command? That way you can run the Docker logs after it fails.
Remove this RM, this.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Now run the startup script again.
Docker images. It's there. Docker PS.
Yep, it's there now.
It's there now.
Yep.
All right. So that's what it was. Right. So we have Docker images 6 seconds ago right there. Boom. All right. Sweet. It'd be really dope if I could query that database just to make sure it works. How do I do that?
You can do a quick tell you here in a second. You you do Docker exec in your database. Docker exec dash IT
Mm-hmm.
PB underscore what do you name your thing? Oh, pets
Pets DB
DB, yeah. Dash
bash
H.
dash H.
Mm-hmm. Localhost dash P 5432 dash uppercase U Postgres dash D and pets DB image. Yeah.
This is going to do what?
That'll put you into the PSQL environment.
Yes. Not the bash shell of the container. I'm going straight to the database. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Not
Okay.
quite.
You're in there. Oh, we missed the PSQL
All
in the
right, so
exec.
okay, so it's what?
So after pets DB, you got to put in the PSQL.
PetsDB PSQL,
Yeah, right.
PetsDB PSQL.
Yeah.
Nope.
Huh. What else are we missing here? Oh, not uppercase D, lowercase d. It said invalid option. You got a uppercase D. Yeah. And what is this complaining about? It said your pets DB image does not exist.
Do you have to change localhost to your IP address?
Uh, local host is another name for for your IP address, like local your machine, the 127 number, 001 or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Would it be easier? This is your problem, guys. Like, what would be easier if I didn't go straight there? Can I exec into the container? Would that make it easier? And then run a PSQL command? Or is there something we've built before that you have at your disposal that you could just look up? Or is there something here that I could use? Right? What did we use? People getter before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so what way could I get in here? I need to check this one way or the other. I need to make sure that I can query that one item I have in the database. If not, I don't know if it's all going to work. Right.
Right. Right.
So what
Mm.
goes here?
$32.
Stuff in the front.
Okay. Thank you.
Guys, you guys are stuck here. How do you get into my database? I can't check anything.
On the port, isn't it 544 and then colon 5432 instead of just 5432?
That won't make a difference.
Uh, just try doing, can't you just,
Docker PS. This is my container ID. Can I just exec into it? Get me started there.
okay.
Can I exec into this container?
Yeah. Okay,
What's
it
wrong?
requires at least 2 arguments. Go back. Help options. Doc exec requires you got to put more arguments in there. So you got IT, you need something else to go with that. Let's
Exec IT, my
mhm.
Docker container.
Yeah,
Ah, did I just duplicate that? I feel like I just
yeah, it
duplicated
looks
that.
like it did. And maybe
Ah, why
I
does it keep doing that?
don't know.
It doesn't matter. Can I go into the bash shell of my Docker container?
Yes.
Yes. There you go. Okay, I can go into, now I'm inside my container. Now the
Mm-hmm.
only thing I have to do is what?
It's just run PSQL.
Okay, so how do I go in there?
PSQL pets underscore DB underscore image.
Pets DB here?
Pretty sure. Could be wrong.
PSQL HP Pets DB? It needs my what?
It needs your uh Doesn't it need local hosts?
No, not necessarily.
Oh, okay. Boy, this Postgres is what you're missing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then just Postgres, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does this work?
Yeah.
Okay, and here I can check what?
Your databases
Can I?
or
How?
the Postgres. Yeah, isn't it backslash DT or D?
What's DT gonna give me?
DT is going to give you the tables.
Okay. And I don't have any tables in the database Postgres, but that's not the database that I created, right?
Right.
I need to do what?
You need to see
I could just change into the database, right? Just change into the database. What's my database called?
oh, okay.
PetsDB, right?
DB, yeah. Isn't it PetsDB underscore image or no?
I called it PetsDB. No, PetsDB is what? I screwed up, guys. PetsDB is my container name. PetsDB image is the image, but I am trying to connect into what database?
Owner.
CD change to owner.
Mhm.
Select star from what
Owner.
table?
Owner.
Owner. Ah, from owner. This is going to give me who?
It's going to give you whoever's in there. All of them. All of your owners.
It's
See
going to give
just
me,
one person.
it's going to give me Sadie, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was painful, but that's okay, right? That's kind of teaching us, hey guys, when we're making these like bootstrap or setup.sh, make sure you know what's going in there, right?
You're right.
We're still kind of not really, and that's okay. We're throwing out a lot at you, but we're still a little fuzzy on exactly what these scripts are doing, right? And abstractions are good when you know what they're doing. They become bad when you're learning and you don't know what's in there. Because when you get into a situation like this where something's not working and you're trying to debug, you're gonna have to debug it line by line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this works. My database works. Cool. How do I exit this? I don't even know. Is it Q? Backslash Q. Yep. And then here's just exit because it's a bash shell. Okay, cool. My database works. This line works. We're gonna roll with this just for now. All right. Now, what do I want to do?
Now what you want to do is go back to your setup sh. So okay.
How many containers are running? Oh, sorry.
You got two running.
Yep, I got two running. What are they? And what are they doing?
You got pets DB image and you got the pets API one running, I believe.
Exactly. All right, cool. I have a database running in a container. I have an API running in a container. Cool. What's the next thing we want to do? This is where everyone here is stuck, I think.
A database
What,
running in
what
a
do you do from
container.
here?
Got a database, got the API.
Oh,
Now
guys, give
oh.
me 1 second. Sorry. I'm going to let you finish. Guys, that little exercise right there, you guys really need to understand that process. Remember the sweet Bootstrap SH script that I wrote the other day?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have it. I just deleted it. And that's what I do every single time. I know conceptually how it works. I'll just write it again or figure it out or Google or ChatGPT it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't have to save the script because I know what's supposed to happen and then I will just piece it together from there. So I honestly couldn't remember all the commands either. But it's not my job to know them. It's yours. right? You're learning this stuff. Conceptually, I could figure it out. And that's where you need to get to. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, all right, we have two containers running. One has a database, one has our API. Now, what's the very next step? We need to check what? This is where you're stuck.
Yeah, one container running, you got the API. You need to check that they can talk to each other.
There we go. Yeah. How do we do this?
That's where I'm stuck.
All
That's where I'm stuck.
righty. All righty. Okay, so let's go back to what the assignment was. Pets and owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pets and owners. Cool. Notice my line 13. I don't even have a pet in here. I have a person. We're gonna
Right.
roll with it. Close enough. We're gonna get there. Okay, so we need to ping our API that needs to retrieve information from our database, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we have an example here in PeopleGetter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at the API, if I look at this and I look at my API, there we go. I'm going to exit this so I don't need it. Break that a little smaller. I'm going to make this a bit smaller and I'm going to put them right here. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Man,
a little different. It's a little different.
It's a little different, but it's awfully close though.
Yeah.
Right? It's awfully close. Yes?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we know that if I do this, it returns what? If I ping the home route, what do I get in the browser?
The message success. Yeah.
All right. Let's go owners. Do I have an owners table? It's the only table I have.
Yeah, that's the only one.
So if I go owners, I know they can talk to each other with what happens.
It's not grabbing the database tables or database info.
No, but I know that I'm on the right track when I ping / owners and I get back who based on my database right now.
The one person.
The one person, Sadie. So this route is broken. Why don't we just work on that route? We're going to work on this route.
Right.
Owners. All right, connect to DB pet name. Right? What did we call our database?
You called it owners.
What's our database name?
Owner.
What is it?
Owner.
Yeah, I called it owner. Why didn't I call it something useful? I called it owner. Okay, cool. So SciComm connect to, it should have been called pet app. I screwed up. Owner. Connect to owner, right? Then it's going to run this execute command on what table?
App user. So you need to change that to owner. Yeah.
Save. Refresh. If I go back to 1,000, I get success. What about if I go to owners? Getting an operational owner, getting an error. I'm getting a 304 error, right? What is this saying?
304, that is, I forgot what a 304 was. It a server error? No, it's not a server. What is 304?
You have an extra S on line 13
Where?
on owners. Line 13 owners. Should that be owner singular?
No, that should be
The
empty.
routes, yeah, the route can be whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
All right, so here, DB name, right? If I go to my database, right, and how I set it up, I have a database called owner. Connect to owner, I have a table called owner. That was dumb. But that's fine. I can still connect to it. And here, this isn't working. I'm fetching all what?
You're fetching all the data from that table.
Yeah, I'm fetching all the data and it doesn't seem to be working. They're not able to talk to each other. Could not connect to server, no such file or directory running locally, right? So what is the issue here?
Well, still using. Oh, you got to rebuild for one.
What do you mean?
Because that change that you made to the API server, it's no longer going to be the changes
Why?
because you have, so whatever changes you make, you got to run that setup.sh again to rebuild the apps API server for it to update with that information.
Exactly. Just because I just changed it locally doesn't rebuild the image that my Docker container is based off of, right?
Right.
Okay, so I have to rebuild what? My API.
Mm-hmm.
My API, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here I am going to run a what?
You're going to run the build t pets underscore API dot.
Image?
No, not image. The AP. What do you call your API?
Let's look at my Docker file, right? From my API.
Yeah. Well, since you got the dot setup sh, you can just run that.
Oh, it doesn't have anything. Never
Oh,
wrote
it
it.
doesn't.
That's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
It doesn't have anything,
Okay.
so we'll do it manually. All right, so
Right.
here, what do I have to? I have to just run what?
Just Docker build
Docker build what?
-t and pets. And you don't want to call it pets DB image. You want to call it pets API.
Pets API?
Yeah.
Let's call it Pets API 3.
Okay.
Yes?
Yeah.
So I'm going to rebuild this image. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Now I want to do a Docker what?
Docker run -rm-p.
Let's check, make sure my images are there. Yeah?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I need Pets API 3 to be there.
You're right.
It's there.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to do Docker run what?
-rm-p 8,000, or if you want, well, if you want to use 2,000.
Yeah, we can do 8,000. 8,000?
8,000, yeah. And pets API.
Pets API?
Mhm.
That's my image. Pets API.
Yeah. That's it.
And this is going to do what?
That's going to run the API on that port 8,000.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
It's running the port. All right.
Mhm.
I am going to go to 8,000 and I should get what?
Success.
I got a 200. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Boom. I go to /owners I should get.
The one person that's in the file, hopefully. Nope, still didn't work. Why is it
Could
not
not connect to
working?
server, no such file. And I am getting still a 304,
Yeah.
right? Let's look at this error. All right, I get this one, and this is the error. It says get owners 500, trace back, and it gives you a big error message. right?
Mm-hmm.
Cannot connect to server, no switch file or directories. The server running locally, accepting connections on 5432,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is everyone here right now?
Yeah.
Is everyone's code right here?
No.
Okay. See if you can get your code right here in the next like 15 minutes or so, right? And the only route that I want you to work is owners. That's it. Why isn't this working? Because the minute that you figure out why this is not working, all the rest should work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
I'm going to pause the recording here. And I'm going to open, give me, sorry. Let me,
And, and when I did that, I managed to have the API running. So let's go. So split the screen up, close this out. Okay. So yeah, so after I can't see my uh now I can't see my browser bar up here. So yeah, so if I go to, so that's the first, that's owners. And then if I go to this route here with the ID, I can see what I'm doing here. Let's just open this up. Just put that in there with an ID, change it to 1. It gives you 1 owner or the first owner, 2, well, it's auto doing it for me. 2 second owner, and then if you do the owner slash pets, it shows the owner and their pet name. So the routes work in the API. Now I was actually trying to get the HTML to populate, but I noticed something here. I got owners, get owners, 1, 2, 3. But what I was noticing is in the app.js, this route here, this base URL route says all, but I believe it should say, shouldn't it match up with owners? And yeah, shouldn't these base or these URLs match up with the route URLs in order to
yes, they
get
should. Scroll down. There is no all.
there? There's no all on here. No.
Good catch. That's a typo.
Yeah, there's no all. So instead of all, it should be owners.
Owners.
Yeah. And this
You
one
can even
should,
see it on line 25, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Good.
So once I change these, it should work and be able to get that, pull that data from the database.
Excellent job, Cisco.
Yeah.
Where did everyone else get stuck?
I think we know where I was at.
Yeah, dude, I ran into the same thing. I actually don't know how to fix your problem besides deleting everything and rerunning everything from the beginning, running both containers over again and
Okay.
clearing everything. That's how I fix it.
Like
It's a
like even the actual like server.py, like those two, like
yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
just rebuilding all the images, clearing out my entire Docker, killing all the processes on my computer. I kept getting a 403 like you were doing it, and I don't know what it was. It was, I think, because another thing. I had something running on port 5000 or something, and it was causing a lot of problems.
There were definitely issues like with some of the cache that I had from
Yep.
other Docker files from yesterday, and I think that you ran into that today too initially. I think that was one of the issues, like early on. So I deleted them, but I probably just got to go back and screw around with it some more.
Yeah, I don't remember the purge commands. I think someone mentioned them here a week ago. Get
I think
comfortable with the
prune. I think prune is one of them as well.
your
And
prune and purge. There are two of them. Google that. Make sure that you're really comfortable with that. That's gonna make your life a lot easier. I remember when I was working on Docker a lot, like a year ago, I just would run. I wouldn't even bother because I ran it so frequently. I had a little script that would just purge everything and clean it and rebuild everything every single time. I wasn't even like, because I was developing so fast, I didn't even want to bother to even figure out what the issue was. I would just destroy everything, rebuild it, go get something to eat, come back, and it was ready to go.
Oh, I wanted to bring up one important thing I also realized. Nicole, you mentioned your 5500 port when you tried live server.
Yeah.
So let me, I know I'm going to run over, may run us
Go
over
ahead
here.
quickly. Go ahead quickly.
Yeah. So first of all, I've realized that the base URL here, I had to change it to 8001. But for live server, I realized that you got to go in here and actually, I had to change this port. In live server settings, you go to port and you edit the JSON, right? And you change this port number to 8000. Now, when you do that, unfortunately, still when you right click on it and start live server, it's going to automatically, it's not going to be 8000 because you're using this API on 8000, right? So it's going to add one to it. And yeah, so when it does that, you should be able to this number has to, I believe it has to match up with whatever you have in your app.js up here for the base URL. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to work. So I just wanted to give you guys that.
Play with all of it because I have the port 5000 error where I keep getting 403.
Right.
And then I was having issues with all of that, so I kind of just scrapped a lot of it and started over. But I'm still having that issue, so I'm just going to restart everything shortly.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Cisco. That was helpful.
Yeah.
This is messy, guys. Having one container talk to another is very, very messy, right? But there's something super, super important to understand. Definitely understand it locally because once you start deploying something in, let's say, the cloud, for example, it gets even messier because then you have, I'm only going to mention it here just to kind of scare you into understanding how important this is. You have right now, you know how they couldn't talk to each other because the ports weren't right and the URLs weren't right. Eventually, you'll have security groups, right, around those containers, right, that only let certain CIDR ranges, IP addresses in, right? So then you'll have, okay, is the IP and port lined up so two services or three services or 16 services, that is often the case, can talk to each other, and are all the security groups on each of the containers correct, so that they allow, even though the two containers may have permission to talk to each other, if the security group roles around them don't have the same permissions, then that's another blocker, right? And that's not even talking about like NACLs, where like if something's coming through the internet, a firewall will block it and it sits on the whitelist, and then it comes into, you know, a VPC, then it goes to a security group, then it goes into your container. Or sometimes it goes through an API endpoint, then it hits a security group, then it goes into a container or something like that. Make sense? So it's really important that we figure this out now because it really honestly gets so complicated. And I know Art, you were asking about, you know, specializations and, you know, not just me or whoever wants to, what specialization you eventually want to work in. That's another specialization that pays really well that just is really hard. Networking. Networking is really tough, and you guys are just kind of starting to get the ball rolling and kind of understand what that is. But you can specialize in networking. I was on an engagement probably like a year ago where we had to call in, and Amazon has a bunch of specialists. So when you get stuck on something, you can call someone who's literally, whose only thing is to know about this one thing, right? And then that dude needed to bail us out because nobody on our team was a super master expert in networking thing. And the problem was so niche that you would need, you know, decades of expertise to kind of understand something like that, which we didn't have. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. We ran over. Have a wonderful day, guys. If you haven't got this to work, it might be worth your time to kind of give it one more go.
Cool. Catch you guys later.
Bye,
Take it easy,
guys.
guys.